Hello, Endersword here again, this time with a game from, I'm not really sure what league it's from, but it was posted by bANzA on the TeamLiquid.net strategy forums, and he didn't say. Just based on the play, I'm thinking it's probably gold, platinum type level. I'm not really sure, but it doesn't really matter. What we're going to see today is Blastoise, our Protoss player, coming up with a bunch of all-ins against our Terran players. So he's going to do some just fairly cheesy stuff kind of over and over and ultimately see what he can get away with. So the three key points that we're going to look at today are, number one, targeting the source of the problem. So right now we're going to see kind of the origin of the source of the problem. That there's a pylon that's going to go down on the low ground, and we're going to have a probe in our base running around doing stuff. Both of those are basically key to everything. Without the pylon, nothing can be built, and without the probe, nothing's there to build it. So by killing either of those things, you create a lot of problems for the Protoss player. And of course, as he came in, that was spotted right away. So he knows immediately right off the bat that the gateway is what the play is going to be. Which brings us to our second point, which is that more is lost through inaction than wrong action. So what most people would do here, what I would certainly do here, is take a few workers, 4 workers probably, pull them down immediately and go and attack that pylon on the low ground. Alternatively, you can try and swarm the gateways themselves to make him cancel those, but you have to act in one way or another. There has to be some sort of action going on here. Ideally, you may want to also try and pick off or snipe this probe, particularly when he goes behind the mineral line. Just take 3 SCVs off and kill him. But just allowing this to finish without doing anything is just not an option. That is just the worst case scenario. So he tries to react fairly defensively to this. I'm going to get a bunker up, I'm just going to get one of my Marines out, something like that. But this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You're now with a single Marine. You know that the Zealot's going to be able to completely take out this stuff, because there's no way that you can defend it with a Zealot out and then 2 more shortly coming. They're going to tend to chrono boost those out. So you're going to have 3 in your base very, very quickly. And so we've got 3 Zealots in the base, but only 2 Marines available to us. And of course he does pretty good decision going right after the supply immediately, supply blocking the Terran, so that basically these 3 Marines are the only Marines that you're going to get until you can actually deal with this. So overall, pretty effective in what he's done so far. This is delaying a lot of things, preventing the creation of any new workers, preventing the creation of any new parts of the army, and forcing him to spend resources on the supply depots, while at the same time just getting his Zealot count up. Let me get rid of that. I'll get to the third point a little later when it's relevant. So the bunker here, fairly decent placement, maybe a tiny bit more central. I know he didn't want to put it in the mineral line itself to block it. Sometimes it is good just to get that full coverage so they can't be picking things off over here or something like that. But given that it's all Zealots, they kind of have to come into the line to do damage, so it's a fairly decent placement. However, there's just not enough Marines here to quickly take these out. So the SCV count is just punished lower and lower. And the Zealots at this point, while they're very easily being expended, are still just picking off an extra SCV here and there and kind of making themselves not really cost efficient exactly, but cost efficient in the sense that it's delaying the Terran from ever getting anything going, while the Protoss knows this is now not a game-winning situation. He can't win with these Zealots here, but he can definitely do a lot of damage. So again, just putting them out while he's building his own probe count up, and the Terran just being a bit indecisive. Kind of went out, didn't know if he wanted to fully commit to attacking that gateway, went back to the bunker, loses a few more SCVs in doing so. Things are just a little all over the place, and he's still allowing Zealots to be built in his own base at 6 minutes and 30 seconds into the game with this many Marines. He can just be doing this. He's basically taking one out before it can even reach him, with even a little bit of stutter step micro. But again, now dancing around a little bit, doesn't really know what he's targeting, starts to target the pylon, backs up. At this point, this one canceled it, Zealot. This guy's making it almost for no reason. He probably shouldn't have even bothered to make that one, other than he knows it's going to delay the killing of his gateways. And then even now, just kind of targeting the gateways down as opposed to finally taking the pylon out. If you take the pylon out immediately, maybe you supply block the guy as well, and then he can't even get an extra probe out. So he does ultimately throw up Cyber Core and realize, okay, well that pushes over. I'm now in defensive mode, so he's just gonna do everything there. And the Terran player is just kind of gonna go back to normal. And his thought pattern at this point is, oh, I held that off, so I'll expand. I'll put a bunker randomly in my base again, and then I'll finally kill off this other gateway. You want to, at this point, when you hold something like that off, look at what you have, and then decide what advantage you do have, and what advantage you probably don't have at the moment. At this point in the game, the advantage that he probably does not have is an economic one. The advantage he does have is a military one. He knows that he has 16 Marines. Well, there's no way that the Protoss player, after losing all of that and both his gateways, is going to have any form of army that can compete with the 16 Marines that are there. So what's he gonna do? He does this in the meantime, just decides I'm gonna cannon rush as well to try and distract him, keep him in his base. The probe that has been causing all the problems finally gets destroyed like minutes later, like 7 minutes later. That would be the type of thing that you want to go after really quickly to make sure that it just completely gets out of the way. So with 17 Marines now out onto the map, he's expanding with only 12 SCVs, not even producing more SCVs out of the Orbital Command Center, and finally starting down there as well. Generally, you want to look at where we are and say, well, what do I have? Where do I have the advantage? Where don't I have the advantage? He's trying to catch up economically when you should really just be using your military advantage and go kill him. There's really no reason for him to hang back at this point. You can do all of this stuff in the background. You can definitely continue to make SCVs in the background. You can definitely continue to tech up here. We don't even have any gas mine the entire game, so there's no way he's ahead technologically or anything like that. But go and take a poke at your opponent. At least make him defend himself. He knows now at this point, due to this scam, what's going on here, and he sees a robotics bay going. He sees that gateways are just being morphed into warp gates, and a couple of them were still building. He sees work on a forge, which he obviously knew existed, but he knows that it's researching an upgrade. There's absolutely no way that there was any army in this base at all, or of any significant size. This entire defense is powered by one pylon. This could just absolutely steamroll it. We've now got 24 Marines just kind of sitting there not being used. You want to go in and just absolutely end this game outright, particularly once you've actually scanned and see, good lord, he has the audacity to tech up behind this. That's what he's doing. He's not defending himself at all. He's decided, I'm just going to take the high-tech route and tech up behind all of this, even destroying one of his own defenses to try and get out a little later. So had he just moved out initially with the original 16 Marines, he just would have swarmed over this pylon and that would have been it. Just run up the ramp, kill the pylon, and that's game, and there'd be no need for the economy or anything back at home. Just now, at 13 minutes into it, his economy is now kind of matching, but he's now so far behind on the tech path itself, it's going to take him another couple minutes to catch up to that. But he gets some inkling of what's happening and decides to go for a multiple bunker defense to try and hold this on. Again, not poking out, not being proactive as to the source of the problems, not taking out pylons, not trying to control a watchtower, basically just being very turtley the whole time when it didn't make sense to be turtley. You want to be a little more aggressive and try and nip some of these things completely in the bud before they can actually come and get you. So again, kind of turtling up into these bunkers. That's probably a good idea to hold this. The bunker actual configuration may not be the best, and you're pulling off a lot of SCVs to just wait for that attack to come. He can kind of sit out here for a long time and doesn't really have to attack, and these just aren't mining in the meantime, and nothing's really going out to check. Is he still out there? What's actually happening? So if we switch to bANzA's view, you can see, okay, there's a few stalkers, but where's the rest of the crap? At this point, he can now see that, oh, they're in the base. So he may just not be looking at his mini-map, kind of pulls things up, jukes back and forth, doesn't empty things out of his bunker, kind of comes down here to regroup, doesn't really know what he's doing, sends this guy back, pulls these guys out, jukes back and forth, regroups them up into one ball, takes out a sentry, and oh, it's too late. The entire friggin' army is now in your base, when he could have attacked when there were 4 troops in his base, and this thing was trying to shuttle them up and down. So he ends up letting the entire thing in his base. A lot of good force fields go down. He's completely exposed, no bunkers or anything like that around. Tries to kind of move in. Instead of pulling back, just continues to attack into the force fields. If that does happen to you, just pull back, let those force fields expire. There's nothing over here that's 100% critical that's worth losing the game over. So just kind of pull back, let your SCVs get into that fight and whatever. But overall, it was over basically the moment he let everything up there. But he saw it. He saw that there were 3 units that actually came into play. In reality, there were 4, but he couldn't see the 4th. But there were 3 units in play that he could see, and he could basically see that they weren't even here anymore. So you have to know that that is what's actually going on, or you just fire a scan down, or you find out what's going on. But you have to decide what to do, or else you're gonna end up mad like this, thinking, hey, I just lost to 3 all-ins. How did you do a proxy gate and then attempt a cannon rush and then attempt to break my front and then shuttle yourself into my base? How is that possible? It's possible because the proxy 2 gate was allowed to do a lot of damage to begin with. It held the economy back, and due to a lack of decisiveness in actually kicking it out and putting an extreme end to it, then it was allowed to hold that economy back while he comfortably built up his own economy. He realized it had lost, and he was only making more zealots so that he was just delaying the Terran. At that point, a push-out could have been done, and the game could have ended there. The second all-in was when he put down the forge and decided, well, I'll kind of cannon in his base. Not really all in, because he wasn't super committed to that. It was, again, a bit of a delay tactic. What were the odds that that was going to do anything? Very low, knowing that there's enough Marines out there. He was never going to get close enough to do it. He just kind of, either he was dumb and thought he could, or he was just trying to hold it in there, which I think is more likely the case. He just wanted to be annoying and keep that army in his base while he kind of prepared out here. And then ultimately the third thing, just right in his face, deciding I'm going to tech up as opposed to defending myself. I'm going to put the entire base on this one pylon defending me. I know that I have absolutely no military way to defend myself, but I have a much better economy. So he decides to take the tech route, decides to take the production route, and says, I can outproduce and out-tech this guy, and then just take him through basically the back door through this drop here. I'm sure he was thinking initially he wanted to go at the front, but obviously saw that that wasn't going to happen. So all of that could have been prevented. All 3 of these things could have actually been prevented before they ever even happened. And after the very first one was prevented, he could have just gone across the map and absolutely killed the player. So the big takeaway on this, and I've said it like 50 times during the thing, is that more is lost through that hesitation, the fact that you don't act, than acting the wrong way. If it turns out that you put those Marines up and said, I'm going to kill that pylon right now, and a Zealot came out and chopped up 3 of them, well, the pylon's dead. You're still better off that way than you were if you just don't do anything, and they can still just come out and come out and come out over and over. So that's definitely the case, and thanks for watching, guys.